Are we on? Okay. So first, I'd like to start off by thanking the candidates and their representatives for coming today. We're at the end of the campaign season. It's been long and a lot of hard work for these guys, and yet they're taking time out of their schedules to come and visit with us. We thought it was important to give them a chance to talk to us on the west side. We feel like there's a lot of unique desires and wants and a lot of development happening out here, all these kind of issues. And we wanted to give them a chance to come and address us directly to be able to address these kind of issues that we care about out here. A couple notes. We have divided the questions into three topics based on what people have given us through emails. If there were similar questions, we have actually combined them down. So if you don't hear your exact question, we just felt like it was two questions were the same, so we kind of combined them into one. Due to time constraints, we will run this meeting as a forum, not a debate. That means that we ask the candidates to please stick to proposing their own ideas without addressing other people's ideas or making any sort of comments on the other candidates, because there will be no time for rebuttal from those candidates. For each question, I will read the question, and then I will call on a candidate to start. Each candidate will then be given 1 to 2 minutes. I will tell them how much time to answer that question. We ask the audience tonight to hold your own questions or follow-ups until the end. If there's time, we'll open up the mic and allow you guys to ask some questions. If there's not, we hope that the candidates can hang around for a few minutes and talk with us, and you'll have that opportunity at that time to bring up anything that was missed. We are hoping to finish at around 6:50, so we can have a short intermission, and then we will move into the mayoral candidates. So to start off, let's go ahead and start with Wesley Marriott, because he's sitting in the middle. Will you just tell us your name and why you decided to run for office?
I have 1 minute. 1 minute. Yeah, I'm Wesley Marriott. I'm so grateful that you guys all showed up here. I'm grateful for these guys. I know I'm not supposed to talk about these guys, but I have serious respect for the people who are running for city council. They've given us so much, and it's a lot of time. The reason I'm running is a couple of months ago. Well, part of the reason, a couple of months ago, I was actually talking to somebody on the west side, and I was like, "Are you going to get involved?" And she's like, "No, I'm not going to get involved. Nobody ever listens to us on the west side. Why would I vote? Why would I get involved?" And after talking to her for a little bit, she decided. She said, "Well, if you could represent us in these ways, then maybe I would get involved." And so I've come to a realization that there's so many underrepresented people in Provo, and I feel like the city council needs energy and people that will bring good representation to all people, not just the vocal minority. Thanks.
Dave Sewell's got a representative here. You're up next.
Good evening, folks. Obviously, I'm not Dave Sewell. My name is Alex Christiansen. I'll be representing him this evening. Dave's actually away on vacation. He's soaking up the last minutes he has with his daughter before they go to school. But the reason Dave ran for city council, he had a lot of experience in the neighborhood chair program. I believe he was a vice chair, and he had an incredible experience there. And a lot of people really, really admired Dave's talent of listening, of caring for all people. And I know that Dave has done an incredible job. I'd just like to read something really quick. It's a quote from West Side Testimonial. "I've always been impressed with Dave Sewell's care and concern of the west side of Provo. While none of the city council live on my side of the city, Dave has continually made his presence known. He has been a listening ear and has personally restored my confidence that all voices of Provo matter." Thank you very, very much.
Before I start, I wanted to excuse Hunter Phillips, who is very interested in being here. He called a few minutes ago and let us know that he's stuck on I-15 up by Lehigh. So he's very interested in this and is working hard to get here safely. And so he'll join us as soon as he gets here. Okay, I'm Mike Rohn, and the reason that I'm running is probably best illustrated by a short story. I believe that running the city is a lot like taking an extended cruise on an ocean liner. And the roles of the mayor and the city council are vastly different. The job of the city council is to determine, are we leaving from Long Beach or Miami Beach? And are we going to Hawaii, Tokyo, and Singapore? Or are we going to Rio, Lisbon, and then ending up in Liverpool? To determine not only where are we going, but when are we going to get there, and to provide the resources. The mayor's job is to run the people on the boat that make it happen. Unfortunately, our city council, I think, has been more focused on whether we're having scrambled eggs or poached eggs, and whether we're changing the linen once a week or daily. And so I think we need to look long-term in our planning. That's why I'm running.
Thank you for those comments. To start right off, you are running for the city-wide council spot. Now, to catch everyone up, our city council has several regional council representatives, and then it has two city-wide spots that represent the entire city. So this is a unique responsibility of representing all of Provo, even though different areas may have different ideas or goals, and in fact, sometimes these ideas and goals actually conflict with each other. How will you seek to incorporate and balance those different viewpoints representing the whole city? And in what areas do you think the desires of citizens on the west side may differ from the rest of Provo? Let's go ahead and start with Chris Jansen.
Thank you very much. Dave is known as being one who goes to great lengths to hear all sides of issues, especially controversial or hot button issues. His email list, which many of you may be on, I know that's one of the ways I was first in contact with Dave. It contains a significant number of constituents from all areas of the city, especially the west side. And that helps him retain a broader perspective of how residents are thinking and feeling about any given issue. Dave sees his responsibility as acting in the best interests of the city as a whole. Obviously, that's what a citywide representative has to do. However, that also requires a heavy dose of listening to area concerns, area-specific concerns, in this case, the west side. I know that Dave tries to think of each neighborhood that is affected by an issue as if it was his own neighborhood. Because as a citywide representative, Dave believes that whatever is in the best interest for all of Provo is always a priority. Thank you.
Micro.
So you're combining questions 2 and 6 for 2 minutes instead of 1? I think that it's important to point out that the citywide council representatives have a unique responsibility to the entire city. And in doing that, I will be attending your meetings. I've attended a number already out here about development issues and those things. I'll be looking at and reading your Facebook posts. I'll be trying to understand specifically what's going on. When you call, I'll respond. When you send emails, I'll respond. I'll do those kind of things that are critically important and kind of the top of the iceberg. I think that Mayor Curtis has done an excellent job with his blog in reaching deeper into the city than anybody has in the past. The City Council has just started a new communication program called Open City Office or Open City Hall. Unfortunately, it's only had 863 visits. Only 192 people in the whole city have subscribed, and only 151 people have actually participated. That, in my opinion, is an abject failure. In the past 3 years ago, as a member of the Neighborhood Advisory Board, we suggested working on a black box model using all the contacts that the city utilities have to reach out to literally every single household in the city. And to do that in a way where we politicians couldn't get our hands on it, but if a neighborhood chair reached out, they could contact every single person in their neighborhood. Because right now we only have the contact list that we create ourselves, and most of us penetrate our neighborhood nominally. Our Facebook pages, in my neighborhood, I have 18 people who've subscribed. In her neighborhood, she has a couple hundred. That's a vast difference in the penetration. Differences, you're concerned about development, farmland, agriculture, conservation, what's going to happen with the lake, what's going to happen with the airport, and all those things. That's a little different than the rest of the city, and I understand that. Thank you.
Hi, yeah. So there's 7 city council seats. They're basically all the same person. I think that like when you look across at the people who are on the council, they need to have a little bit more diversity. I think that's why Hunter and I are both running in a lot of ways, is that there's over 60,000 people in Provo that are underrepresented and they don't actually have a voice. And I think the West Side usually gets that same reputation where a lot of people aren't on the council listening to what you have to say. I personally, because I have business background, marketing information, how to get the word out. The problem with the city council right now isn't that they have the information. The information's all out there, but it's how you communicate with people. Nowadays, we don't want to read a blog that's like this long. It's not going to help us. It's not going to get us involved. It's not going to help us actually feel like we understand what's going on. I feel like there are better ways to get us engaged. I want to create a way that we can actually communicate back and forth in a good way, and it has short clips of information of helping people understand what the issues are in Provo. So many times we don't know what the issues are, and people aren't informed, and it's because there's just a long blog to read. Mike mentioned Open City Hall. It's the same thing. They spent $10,000, and we could spend that $10,000 in marketing. We could treat this more like a business and getting the word out and helping people feel engaged. As soon as we do that, then there's good feedback. The first thing is educate people, and then once they're educated, then the engagement increases. And I feel like I'm uniquely in a position to help people feel and understand how that works. So thanks.
Who are you representing?
You guys are taller than.
Oh, okay. I'm the shortest.
Do you want to stand up, maybe?
No, it's fine.
I'll adjust it again.
Okay, Mike, you actually get to start this one. So
Oh, hold it. Hunter's here.
Hunter made it. Great. Let's have Hunter come in and introduce himself really quickly.
You get a.
Hunter, we'd love for you to tell us your name and why you chose to run for office.
Sorry, everybody.
You're up at the mic.
At
Okay,
the
got 1
mic,
minute.
thanks.
I had a meeting in Idaho Falls today. So my name's Hunter Phillips. I'm running for city council, in short, because I believe that on a citywide level, neighborhoods haven't been represented on an individual level the way that they ought to. I believe that every neighborhood needs more of an advocate on the city council, and that needs to happen in specific ways for specific neighborhoods from the citywide representative. So without taking more of your time, that's me.
Thanks, Hunter. Just to catch you up, Beth is doing the timing, and so look to her. See how much you have. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Come on up, and we'll catch you up on questions. There's only been two more,
This is not what I wanted.
or
to
one
have.
more. Okay, so the city-wide council members have the unique responsibility of representing all of Provo, even though different areas may have conflicting or different ideas or goals. How would you seek to incorporate and balance those viewpoints? And in what areas do you think the desires of the citizens of the west side may differ from the rest of Provo?
Great. So this is exactly what I was just talking about. I believe that every area of town has different needs and different problems that need to be addressed by the city council. And what's good for one part of Provo isn't good for the rest of Provo, or what's good for one part of Provo might be good for the rest of Provo. But I believe that there's an important distinction between the district council representatives and the citywide ones. And I think in my part of town, over by Joaquin, we have 3 different districts that are carved into our neighborhood. So when something happens in my part of town, people know about it, and the council generally knows about it. But I totally feel for what happens over here when something's going on and you've got one council representative who physically can't be everywhere at once, even at their very best, can't be everywhere they need to be. That's why it's my belief that a citywide council representative is your district representative's backup person at every neighborhood meeting, at every event like this. When something's happening in your neighborhood, someone needs to be there. And if it's not your district rep, I think that's the citywide person's responsibility. I think the balance comes in making sure that people are better advocated for and are better aware of what's going on. I don't think that our priorities have to be in one part of town or another, but they should be equally distributed. And that's something I don't believe is happening right now. And I think what's going to be critical in the next few years is to shift from the balance, some of that balance away from I hate to say it, the northeastern side of town, and pull it more towards the areas where we really need to be worrying about what's coming in the next few years, what we're dealing with, because the big development isn't going to be happening against the hill. What we have to fight for and what we have to fight against is happening on this side of town. Thanks.
Thank you. Mike, go ahead and stand. Sorry to make you stand so many times here. I want to go ahead
Just
and...
going to accelerate my knee replacements.
There we go. We're helping the economy.
Tilt the mic down.
I am.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move into some of the issues that we have in this area. And one of them, as Hunter mentioned, is the growth and development on the west side. So the first question I want to ask is, a concern of residents on the southwest area is that it seems like this area is looked at as the last open land for raw development. What is your vision on how this area should develop? 2 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, I think that the west side of Provo should have adequate infrastructure to support whatever else happens out here. That would include a new state-of-the-art sewer plant down in the southwest part of Provo and water infrastructure for fresh water, for culinary, as well as for fighting fires. Right now, the fire lines out here are dramatically undersized. If we had a major fire, we don't have the required delivery to fight fires. I think that's the first thing that needs to happen. The second thing is that I think, as others have mentioned and will mention, the west side has been neglected too long. Planning for it should have been moved on the front burner as soon as the location of the new high school was announced. We should have been 100% after what's going to happen out here, rather than think it was still 15 or 20 years down the road. After the necessary infrastructure, I think a vibrant airport is something that will add to the economy of the whole city on the west side. With commercial flights, with a new terminal, with a major presence for businesses like Duncan Aviation out there and their second and third generation expansion and fourth, which are bringing hundreds and hundreds of good paying jobs to Provo. A stronger presence with UVU's aviation science, a recreation facility, parks, farmland, ranchettes, single-family dwellings, mixed-use housing, more schools, churches, civic facilities, improve vehicular and pedestrian traffic, better access to I-15 north and south, better access to the eastern part of the city, all in a well-thought-out, well-planned manner that's going to enhance our city and your lives over the next 50 or 100 years, and your children's as well. Thank you.
Hi. So I love this question because I think there's such a good opportunity here in the west side to take a look at how we're growing and how that could be healthy or not healthy. There's a book called Suburban Nation. Many of you have probably heard of it before or whatever. Maybe a little antiquated in some things, but there's some really powerful principles that all of you actually need in the west side, and I think that's important for us to consider, like amenities, commercial use, mixed use types of buildings. I think a lot of the report has been on the neighborhood committees and things that Beth has done so well with. The agriculture, they want to preserve agriculture, and they also want to have good areas for large lots of, like, for building single family homes. I think there needs to be a good, healthy approach to how the legislation goes, and if there is commercial opportunities, then we need to allow those to come into the city. I think on the west side, I think everyone's always talking about, oh, we need a grocery store and we need all these things, but I think the city council needs to help perpetuate that. It needs to be proactive rather than reactive. I think too often we wait for things to happen until it's too late. And I think we can have a good opportunity as the citizens to come and communicate and say, these are the things we really need. These are the things we actually really want. And we can help you understand and feel like you're being heard, so that we can perpetuate that good commercial and good development, whether it's the airport or good roads or the infrastructure. But we can have a really good effort if we're all communicating and have a good I thought she said stop, so that's together. Yeah.
Mr. Christiansen. Perfect. Sorry, we're just starting with someone and then moving down, and so be ready to go.
Okay. Folks, when it comes to the West Side development, I know that Dave believes in a healthy balance. Earlier, when the West Side Planning Committee met, there were council members on the board, and in short, Dave supports the findings of that committee. But it will need, he knows that it needs to be taken at a case-by-case basis. It can't just be all developers rule. There needs to be a healthy balance, as some of the fellows here have mentioned. So in short, Dave fully supports the policies that were set out by the West Side Planning Committee. Thank you.
I grew up in rural Idaho, and over the course of my childhood, I watched my town and the surrounding rural areas have to make decisions about what was going to happen when farmers sold their land. In most cases, because my city and the surrounding county didn't have a plan and didn't have any sort of guidelines for what was going to happen, we got the absolute worst kind of development surrounding my city. I can see the same things potentially on the horizon for the West Side here, but not if we have the right leadership and with the right community engagement. I think that new developments on the West Side are a huge opportunity for us to say to developers, what about new kinds of green spaces? What about ideas that you haven't thought of? This can be the part of town where we try new things for developments that maybe people haven't thought of before. It might not be the super dense kind of housing that some people are fearing or imagining, but it might not be the worst possible scenario, but it might not also be completely open agricultural land everywhere, because we are facing down a few inevitabilities. But I think that we can preserve those green spaces and keep the agricultural land that we love so much in a form that's recognizable as we develop and as we add things to this side of town. The infrastructure that Mike mentioned, the things that we absolutely need as we build a community and grow. I think other critical steps are going to involve taking care of the lake, taking care of the river, and preserving the wetlands that are so critical to this part of town and Provo's heritage. I don't think it's an impossible task for us to develop and get the folks who live out here the things they need while also preserving the things that drew you here in the first place.
Okay, Wesley, let's start with you on the next question. So, continuing on with the idea of development, every time a new development comes, a new builder comes to propose new housing or new business, there is a natural conflict between the rights of the landowner trying to develop their land or sell it to a developer, and the community members who are saying, wait, this might affect our traffic, the quality of life in our area. Where do you think that balance lies between the community's interests and the landowner's rights, and how will you seek to achieve that balance? 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay, great. Hi, so I don't know if you guys have been on like housing, like looking where housing is on cost-wise, but I was recently looking at housing on the West Side and costs, and there's this massive plot of land. Well, not massive, it's like, I don't know, 10 acres, and that thing is selling for almost $700,000. That's a lot of money, and nobody's gonna pay for that just to build a single home on. And you can't really make the right amount of money to pay for that off in farming. So there needs to be some way to compromise, and there needs to be some way to not just give in to the developers, because that's not what we want. I feel like in Provo, there's so many developers that want to come to Provo, and we don't need to bend over backwards. We don't need to like just say, well, there's another developer and it's going to make money for Provo, so let's do it. I think as a city council, we can actually compromise and work with the people, but also not give in to the developers, and that will have a huge effect on the quality of development that happens on the West Side. I think a lot of us are concerned that there are going to be high rises and there's going to be all this development next to the airport, and I don't think that any of us really want that. And wow, we're gonna blow away. Okay, it's back on. Um, so I personally feel like as we continue to engage the community, we'll have a better idea of how to work with developers and work with you, the people who actually really care about what happens here. I think that hearing your voice is what I will always stand for as I go forward with this.
I know that as far as development on the west side goes, Dave supports the rights of property owners to develop their own property, but it's subject to the constraints that the council of the council's adopted principles for the west side development. Proposed developments should go through and be generally compatible with the neighborhood master plans. Property owners should not, though, have unconditional rights as to develop as they please. Residents who move to an area need to have those assurances on how the area around them is going to develop. And that goes along nicely with the master plans. Those master plans need to be in place so that residents who are moving to an area know what to expect. On the other hand, developers who should have plenty of options with the guidelines of a plan. If a developer wants to do something that's not compatible with a plan, however, they need to come before the council, and it's taken on a case-by-case basis. And that's something that Dave's worked really hard to do, is listen to both sides of an issue. And I know that going forward, Dave has and will plan to continue attending neighborhood meetings, attending planning commissions and hearing public comments and public issues and discussion, and going and knocking on doors. I'm sure that many of you have seen Dave knocking on doors, and many of you have talked with him about developments in your area. One thing that's known about Dave is that he's an incredible listener. He will listen to your needs and concerns, as he always has this past term. And he wants to hear firsthand how you feel about issues coming up. So Dave continues to do that work, and he hopes that he can continue that in the future. Thank you.
Remember to go closer.
Okay. This close? Okay, good. So the problem with these questions of development is that there are so many different people who have perfectly good reasons for what they're trying to accomplish. I have so much sympathy for the farmer who's been planning for the last 30 years to sell his land when he retires so that he's able to have a retirement. That's something as a result of the changing way the agricultural industry works, the things that have been done to the land over the last 40 years. I also have a ton of sympathy for the folks who have been living out here for the past few decades on 1 acre lots, on 2 acre lots, who want a sort of rural lifestyle, but aren't interested in running a 50 acre farm. Both of those perspectives are totally understandable. But what's critical going forward is being able to know when a developer wants to do something and being able to have a conversation and engage. Right now, prior to any West Side Planning Committee, the issue was that things would kind of come up and neighborhood chairs or people in the area neighborhoods would be taken aback by something that they heard was going to happen. And that's on the fault of the city council, to be honest. But in the future, with a robust neighborhood program and with a strong commitment to making sure people are communicating, I think it's totally possible for us to have the discussions that, for example, I saw a couple last month at the Provo Bay neighborhood meeting, where people had a real discussion with a developer about what was good about a plan, what was bad about it, and how we can work together going forward. Those kind of conversations are going to be critical with every single development that we're facing down. But hopefully a more committed council and stronger neighborhood committees, which, by the way, the West Side is doing a terrific job with, I think are going to push us forward into a scenario where we're very happy with the growth that we're seeing.
I think as long as there's development and the uses of lands change, there's going to be inherent problems. People who live in a neighborhood generally want it to be the same as it was when they moved in or as it is now. People who are moving in want to change. They want to fix up. Landowners want to make profit or maximize the utilization of their property. And there's nothing wrong with that. People who own property and have money at risk probably should have a little bit more rights than others. But that's not to say that they should squeeze the goose trying to get the golden eggs out so hard that they get them all at once. We need to have reasoned approach to how we're looking to develop. We need to value quality of life. People who move in and build a house right next to a dairy shouldn't a year later complain about the smells and the noise that are associated with the cattle there. On the other hand, if we live in an area and a development's approved and people move in and start to build houses and haul debris, we need to understand that. We need to work to get along. One of the challenges that I think we face as a city council is, in looking at and evaluating these issues, not every single comment has the same weight. We need to be able to evaluate, prioritize, and give different kinds of weights and values to all the different factors. And then looking at all those factors, make a realistic decision based on those that are most important and most valuable, not only for the individual, but for the whole city going forward, now 40 or 50 years down the road. Not every person has that kind of ability. We need a skill set to be able to do that. And I think that's a critical addition that we need to add to our city council. Thank you.
Okay, so we have one last question in this topic, and then we'll move into the environmental issues.
Speaking of environment, would you mind if we moved kind of under the roof? We're feeling a little all wet.
Will that mess up channel 17 if we move?
I mean, heat's fine.
You can fix it?
Yeah, it's raining out here.
It's not bad.
A little bit.
It's all right.
It's good for us.
Answer questions.
Mike got outvoted. Okay. So on this, getting kind of more specific here at the end, several of you have mentioned the West Side development policies. This was a document that was created by a community committee that was put together by the City Council and over several months put together a set of policies that should guide development out here. That document is now, starting next week, going to be incorporated into the master plan for the Southwest Side. So what will you do to support and promote these policies? You have 2 minutes.
I'll keep it short because we already touched on this a little bit and I spoke on this. But again, Dave absolutely supports the policies developed by the West Side Planning Committee and adopted by the council. He was a leading voice in that adoption, and Dave plans to use those plans as a guide for making land decisions in the future. Dave looks forward to encouraging community development with developing neighborhood area plans based on the same principles, similar to what has been done in several other areas in the city. As we develop these neighborhood plans, in effect, they become extensions of the general plan, which was just mentioned. Neighborhood plans will provide additional guidance for the council in evaluating development proposals that come on a need-by-need basis. Dave will be much more inclined to support proposals that come before the council that are compatible, obviously, with the vision for growth expressed in individual neighborhood plans. Thank you.
I too support the work of the West Side Planning Committee and the conclusions that were reached. I think what's going to be critical in the next few years is making sure that you as residents actually know what's in that document and know the conclusions that the committee reached and what to expect from a development that's compatible with those or is incompatible. I think that it's going to also be critical for the city council to make sure that there's no ambiguity in the statements therein, that we make sure we know when we're talking about an average number of units per acre, that we know if that means per development or if that means for the entire west side. I want to make sure that we know exactly the environmental impacts that are happening in a way that's far more robust than the initial conclusions reached. I think there are lots of questions that we'll have going forward pertaining to each development. I hope the West Side Planning Commission is working harder and harder as we go forward, and that document isn't just is completely dead now that it's been adopted by the council. I think as we're moving forward, we need to adapt and we need to keep having conversations. And that's going to be what will help us achieve the most reasonable, manageable growth.
It's tough being the short guy. I appreciate all of the hard work, effort, energy, time that all of you put in to develop the West Side Planning document. You did a great job. It is a marvelous document, and it well reflects the kind of diverse needs and interests that exist out here on the West Side. But like anything, there's no one simple plan that addresses all of the issues and all of the needs of a community as diverse as yours. I think, again, to reiterate, that the city let you down on this. And the reason is, when you look at this document right here, there's nothing that the city has put in this document to give you the necessary infrastructure for the development. There's nothing that says the water lines will be enhanced to put out fires, that we'll be able to deliver fresh water to every home and business out here, or that we're going to have a permanent situation to solve our sewer problems. Instead, we're spending a couple of $1 million to pump the, pardon the word, crap, back up to the old sewer plant that's falling apart and caving in, that can't take out medical or biological waste, that can't take out the smaller effluents that's going to be required by the new state code in about 2025, which are 90% smaller than the current allowable effluents. We also don't have the $30 million budgeted to upgrade the fire system here in West Provo. So the whole plan is built on what you wanted to do, which is great, but it doesn't encumber the city to do anything to make it possible for you. In my opinion, that's a huge failure to you on the part of the city council, which should never have happened. So I apologize. As your city council person, I will make sure that doesn't happen and we address it immediately going forward. Thank you.
So I'm a little bit on the opposite side of Mike. Mike has some good ideas, and I appreciate them. I think the document was really well done, and you guys created it, and I think it was really well done. And I personally feel like as we go forward using this document, we actually implement it. In business, we always talk about the principle of ideas are many, but the execution is minimal. And we can have tons of ideas, we have all these things, but if the city council doesn't actually facilitate things to help you reach these goals, then we're in trouble. For example, you guys talk about agriculture being a main thing and very important. Well, do the people know that they can actually, or can they actually get access to the water that they need to make the agriculture happen? A lot of people feel like, oh, and I've seen this in the notes, they say, well, I wanted to do farming, but I can't actually get the water to do farming, so I gave up the whole idea together. I think that's a problem in the fact that we have these ideas, but unless we're educating and facilitating you to actually accomplish these goals, they'll never happen. And so we need energy from the city council. We need people who will be proactive in getting out there and working with you so that these things actually happen. And it's not just an idea, and it's not just good principles on a page, but it's things that will actually affect and change your life.
Thank you. For these last couple questions, I'd like to cut the limit to 1 minute. We're on the same page. Good. So these have to do with the environmental stewardship, perhaps because we have more open space, a lot of greenery around us. People seem to be quite concerned about how the city, as it grows, will manage these natural resources. So the first question is, considering the projected growth rate for Utah County and limited natural resources, how would you address water conservation in the area? 1 minute.
One of the first people I talked to, or one of the first groups I talked to when starting this campaign was Public Works, in hopes of trying to better understand where the city's at and where we need to be going forward, not only in regards to our infrastructure, which is critically important, but in regards to the resources in general. And I was heartened to find out that Provo is in a very, very good position right now in terms of our water conservation. Not only do we have a ton of water rights that we collected over the years and have been very great in maintaining, but we also have cut far more than the state standards and the EPA standards are. We've met our goals for water conservation and then some. So I want the city council and the city itself to push even harder on that, to try to make sure that we avoid as much as we can a situation like California's drought, where even though we feel like we're prepared, we're doing more and more to conserve water so that in the instance of a catastrophe, our city isn't in a bad place and we're able to go forward even better than usual.
We live in a desert. We're always going to have water issues. We get snow, it melts, it comes down, it provides water for us. And I think that we can do simple little things to conserve water. We can turn the water off when we're brushing our teeth, when we're shaving. We can, I was going to say, shower with a friend. But, there's all these little things that we can do that will make a big difference in aggregate. The 100,000+ of us that live in Provo, a little bit makes a huge difference. The more important thing that I think is, what are we doing for all the people that get our water downstream? We're not taking care of them, and I think we have a stewardship to do that. So those are the kind of issues I think, not watering our lawn in the daytime. Anyway, thanks, Beth. Oh, I still have 15 seconds? Okay, well, if you're under 18, ignore the shower with a friend part.
So I actually did live in California for a second, and there was a time. What? Oh, better. Sorry, guys. So I did live in California for a second, and there was definitely the ordinance that you leave your grass dead, basically. And I don't think Provo's going to get to that point because, one, we have a good community of people like us. And two, if we continue to educate, I think that's the thing. Like Mike said, a bunch of ideas, and there's tons of ideas out there, and we all know we could all do better at all of these things. But I think there's an education piece saying like, hey, currently we're at this level of water supply. Everyone, keep that in mind. As it goes down, we increase the amount of education saying, hey, we actually have a little bit of an issue here. Keep this in mind. Apply a lot of these ideas, and it will save more water. I think as we allocate more resources to educating people, that'll help them conserve more water.
So just a little background on the water conservation. In 2016, the Utah State Legislature passed the Water System Conservation Pricing Law. And under the leadership of our current City Council, Provo is complying to the new law and will be moving to such a rate structure once we've finished migrating to our new billing system. Moving to an increased block rate structure, which is what the new law outlines, not only keeps the City of Provo in good terms with the law, but Dave and the City Council also believe it will be a major economic incentive that we need to encourage water conservation within the city. In addition to moving to the new block structure, Dave knows that the council should take a closer look at landscaping requirements in our zoning code to ensure that there are appropriate options for water conserving landscaping. As the city and its needs grow, our water infrastructure needs to be upgraded. And as we upgrade, we need to look to minimize water loss through leakage and evaporation. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so we have time for one more question. The city recently restructured net metering rates for solar panel owners. During this process, there was a lot of talk about preserving the long-term financial viability of Provo Power, which is city-owned and is a financial resource for the city. What role, if any, do you see renewables playing in power generation in Provo going forward into the future? I believe, Mike, we're back to you. 1 minute.
Oh.
Make it quick.
1 minute is quick. This is a question that's hard to answer in just 1 minute. I think that our power company has done some amazing things. Those of you that aren't aware, hydropower in the state of Utah is only 8% of our hydropower. I think that's more renewable power in addition to just solar and wind. We have just invested in a new low-cost, clean energy, gas-powered plant in West Salt Lake County that's going to generate 200 megawatts of power that's going to be very economical over time. Our power company is also investing in a solar power plant in the south part of the county, which is going to give all residents the opportunity to have solar if they want, whether they put it on their own home or not. That'll be more economical. I think that we should encourage people to produce solar power if they want to supply it. They need to be compensated at a fair rate. And I think the new net metering system will allow us to pull the rates apart and determine what's the best way to do that, because there are different components that we need to address separately. Thank you.
Yeah, I also feel like this isn't very much for this. So net metering, as you all know, is a program for the solar panels on your home. And across the United States, they've come out with kind of incentive-based metering options to help people and incentivize them to do renewable energy. So when you look across the board, most people are doing this because it saves them money and it saves the environment some too. But the current way that we did it in Provo with the cuts is dangerous for actually continuing that process. So in Nevada, just barely they did the same thing, and 99% of the the installations in solar decreased. So I feel like Provo can do a better job at being encouraging towards this environmentally friendly thing.
Folks, Dave believes that Provo City should absolutely be friendly towards renewable energy. Just this couple months ago, Dave led the charge on this net metering issue to find a better rate structure than the previously proposed structure that would have penalized solar panel customers with the surcharge. Together with the mayor, Dave and the council formed a commission to study that specific issue. The commission then came back with a better rate structure that did not single out solar energy users and was widely recognized as being a positive, more equitable situation for solar users. Provo should include a renewable energy goal in its Vision 2050 document so that we are working together to achieve a substantial portion of our power generation from renewable sources within that goal. Thank you.
So as Mike mentioned, something that's really exciting about Utah, and especially Provo City, is how much energy we're bringing in from hydroelectric sources. I know according to Provo Power, it's somewhere between a fifth and a quarter of our energy comes from Deer Creek Reservoir, which is a super great start to us becoming completely dependent on renewables. I know that Provo Power is working really hard and trying to do as much as they can, as Mike also mentioned, to get us new ways to not depend on home-based solar power, but solar farms. In terms of net metering, I want to make sure that you don't have to have a master's degree to understand the laws and the codes and what it's going to take for you to have solar energy on your roof. I want Provo to let people know that it is in the business of renewable energy and that we are able to help people get solar panels on the roof at not a really huge cost to them when it comes down to it. I think Provo's been given a bad rap over the solar issue, and I want to make it right and make sure that people know that Provo's in the business of solar.
Thank you. I believe that's everyone. Let's give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and break now for a 10-minute intermission while we get the mayoral candidates set up. We invite the candidates to come, and if you would like to ask them any further questions, you can do so at this time. Okay, let's get started with the mayoral portion of our forum tonight. As I mentioned at the beginning, the questions tonight were pulled from email questions from the neighborhood. The mayoral candidates will actually be pulling from the same questions we used for the city council members. Because this popularity contest appears to be so popular for mayor, we have several candidates, so we've shortened some of the questions, cut some of them out just so that we can get through with everybody. But otherwise, it will be the same format. Just as a little introduction, we felt like the mayoral candidates is a very important race at this juncture. Our previous mayor is now running for a different office. We've got a whole set of new voices to come in and continue the work in Provo and take it in their own direction. So we wanted to hear what their vision is for how to take Provo forward over the next 4 years. Some of my time is up. I'm being told by the timer. So we'll go ahead and start off. We've asked Mr. Odell to start with the first question. Please just tell us your name and why you're running for office, kind of your overall vision. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm Odell Miner. As your mayor, I will provide proven, principled leadership. I will listen to each of your concerns, ideas, and suggestions. I will respond to your concerns, ideas, and your input and work arm in arm with you in making Provo the forward-looking, vibrant city we all want it to be. My administration will work closely and cooperatively with the City Council in facing and resolving challenges and making choices you expect your elected officials to make. In concert with the Council, you will see purposeful and constructive changes in Provo City procedures, policies, finances, and statutes. Many of these changes will originate with you and your neighbors. Thanks for the contributions you are making to this betterment of our city. Be assured that my commitment, my experience, my education, my training, my prior service in local government will, with your vote, reside in the mayor's office. Thank you for this singular opportunity to again meet with you, and thank you so much for your interest in Provo City.
Good evening, I'm Eric Speckard. I've lived in Provo for 30 years. I've lived in my house in the South Franklin neighborhood for 25 years. Made my last house payment last week, so it's a good week. Have 5 children. Met my wife here at BYU. I graduated from BYU. I'm self-employed. Started a t-shirt business while I was at BYU. Thus, I am wearing my own product. The West Side has a lot of different opportunities, kind of like the South Side has a lot of different opportunities. And unfortunately, over the 30 years that I've been here as a student and married and, owned my own business, this area has been forgotten, just like my area has been forgotten. And so my main reason for being your next mayor is to bring each and every group to the table, because every group has opinions and we need to listen to all of them.
Good evening. My name is Larry Walters, and I'm running for mayor of Provo. I've also lived in Provo a long time. I've been here I moved here originally in 1967 to go to school, the way many of people have. I've raised my family here. I have been on the faculty at BYU for about 30 years, teaching public administration. I've trained local government officials and advised governments on 5 different continents. I'm running for mayor of Provo because this is my home, and I care deeply about what's going on. And I look at the future, and I see over the next 4 years some very significant challenges coming to Provo. And I think that the breadth of my experience and the energy and the creativity that I can bring will help Provo in the years ahead.
My name's Kevin Wing. They call me the Wingman. I'm invested over here on the West Side. I live over here on the West Side. I understand what's going on. I've been doing my homework. I've been meeting with engineers for the city, our water engineers. I know what has to happen. We have to have sewage come in. Our water lines have to be put in. Infrastructure has to be the #1 thing that we finish right now. Also, a new sewage plant is a possibility. $200 million, from what I understand, is going to have to happen on the west side of Provo. I'm running because I care about the people. I care about the youth, and I care about you. And that's what I care about.
Thank you so much for coming tonight. My name is Sherry Hall Everett. I was your council representative on the west side, north of Center Street, and the area rep for the area south of Center Street between 2008 and 2012. The area rep was just before that. I'm really familiar with our west side issues, and we have worked together to master plan the Broadview Shores area. We've worked together to put a resolution on Geneva Road so that it would not be widened to 7 lanes. We've worked in the trenches to solve some of the development issues that have come and some of the irrigation and sewer and drainage issues, storm drains. We prepared for roads in the future. We've done all kinds of things to try to work to move carefully and graciously as we are faced with growing here. I just wanted to see, by raise of hands, how many of you moved here within the last 5 years? How many of you moved here within the last 10 years? Thank you. I'm one of those that came here 18 years ago, and I still feel like the new person on the block, because I do know.
Hi, My name's John Fenley. I have a little bit of a different perspective on the city than most of the other candidates. I don't like a lot of the things I've seen the city doing in the last little while. I really disagree with the camping ban. I try to fight for our rights everywhere I can. Those are really important to me. I don't think the city's been making the right choices as far as development. And I don't think they've been very transparent with some of the deals they've been making. So that's kind of something I've been thinking about. How could we see at a glance everything that the city is working on, all the deals that are going on? I think all of that needs to be public. And I think the city should be disincorporated. If we can't fix it, we need to destroy it to make it better.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Kafusi, and I am homegrown. I was born and raised in Provo. I attended Dixon Middle School and graduated from Provo High. I come from a family of 7 children. My mother was a single mother. She worked at the hospital, the graveyard shift, to raise us. I had the opportunity to marry. I've been married 28 years. I have 5 children, moved back east, and from the minute we got back there and started our family, our whole goal was to get back here. We realized the significance of raising our children in a strong community. We are so proud to be from Provo. Our kids are so proud to be from Provo. And my goal as your new mayor is to keep Provo strong so that your kids are going to want to stay in Provo and be proud to be from Provo. I'm happy to be here tonight, and I thank you for coming out, and I'll stay here till the last question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and jump right in. As we mentioned, we have no incumbent in this race, so we would like to know, what would you continue or change from your predecessor in office? Mr. Speckard.
So one of the things that I think we need to change is the transparency. Every politician talks about it, nobody does it. We need to be aware of what's going on in the city. We need to get more involved with the neighborhoods. We need to help the neighborhoods actually understand what's going on in the city, because in every different part of the city, there's different things going on. All of a sudden, the west side has become the pearl because everyone knows there's development and there's a lot of money coming in. And so all of a sudden, the city's really concerned about the west side. Well, we should be concerned, but we also need to be concerned about the south and the northeast and what's going on everywhere. So one of my key hopes is that we can be more transparent, get the community involved. We shouldn't be doing all these projects, or someone, and you just come to a neighborhood meeting, they say, oh yeah, we just changed the bikes. So on 5th West, all my neighbors said, yeah, they put up the signs and we can't park our cars in front of our house. They made an announcement some time ago that they were going to do it, but, didn't know about it. And so now I have neighbors that can't park because we need all these bike lanes. That's great that people want to use bikes, but instead of making it 24 hours a day where you can't use a bike, why didn't they say, well, most people ride bikes between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So park your cars in front of your house and just be gone. There's so many things that we need to do to get the people involved in this city. It's ridiculous that we have so few people interested in what's going on. And that takes each one of you, because in this group, you represent about 1,000 people each, because everyone else is doing something else tonight. So I am so thrilled that you're here tonight. Thank you for being here.
Again, my name is Larry Walters, and I'm running for mayor. I think Mayor Curtis has done some wonderful things to help people in Provo feel good about living in Provo. I have the sense that there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of excitement about the downtown area, and there's just a better sense of optimism. And I would hope that we can continue that. But I think there's also some things that we need to change. As I've looked around and talked to neighborhoods, my sense is that Mayor Curtis has neglected neighborhoods a bit more than he should have, more than I would like at any rate. I think that we need to elevate the role of neighborhoods in the city decision making, involve them earlier on in the decision making processes and in the execution of our city programs. That's one thing that I would change. I would strengthen and elevate the role of neighborhoods. I think the other thing that should change is he's made some great efforts to try to address our infrastructure shortfall. As you can tell, if you drive around town and encounter all of the construction, a lot of it is city projects where we're trying to upgrade and maintain our infrastructure. I think that's an essential thing for us to do. But I think the way we funded it is not sustainable. We have to revisit the way we fund that infrastructure and come up with new strategies that don't put all of the burden on utility users, but also look then at other sources and other options for sharing the burden equitably, making sure that we are making the adequate investments as well. I think the other thing that we need to do is shift the focus a bit for city programs. I think the mayor and the city council need to cooperate better. There's been I've worked with the city budget committee over the past 4 years, and there's been a fair amount of tension between the mayor and the council on a number of issues. That needs to change. We need a better spirit of cooperation, but we need to focus our efforts on achieving results. We need to accomplish the goals that we have. Thank you.
Take a ahead and look at this ballpark behind me. What do you see? I see a ball field, but I don't see one batting cage for the youth. Not one. That's why accelerated baseball has pushed their way away from Provo, and that's a moneymaker for recreation. A lot of our recreation is what makes us money, and that's a big focus for me, is to make sure that we have the adequate recreation for our youth and out-of-town people to come here and enjoy, so they keep coming back. If you look at St. George, they have one of the biggest traveling baseballs and softball areas in the country, and they make a lot of money because people come. We have the ability to make people come to Provo for a recreation. We just have to give them what they need. That's how you make your money. You start with your small structures, and that's how you make your money. And that's how you build your power. And then you start working on your small functions, and then you have enough money to start working on your bigger functions. It's simple work. It's a simple way to look at things. Instead of going really big, why don't we start small and work our way up? Start paying off our debts. Start getting things taken care of. And we can do that by starting small, like putting a snack shack over here with burgers and fries so people don't have to go to Wendy's over here. Make it a city official thing. Rent it out. Make someone lease it out. Let's do it. Let's work on the small things to make Provo better.
Mayor Curtis leaves some big socks to fill in this community. And I intend to fill them. As I've been going around to visit and campaign, people have called me Curtis 2.0. I don't want to necessarily be Curtis 2.0, but in the software world, 2.0 is an upgrade. So that means you still get the same functionality with a few new added features. And I think some of the added features that I bring to this is I have been a council member. I know how to work with the council. I know what a council member needs. I'm done redevelopment. I served as the redevelopment chair in the city. And I've also gone out and become an expert in transportation, in bike plans, in complete street policies. I came from the neighborhood program, and I understand how important that program is in helping us to maintain the quality of life and the unique characteristics of the 34 neighborhoods that we have in this community. I worked on the downtown, and I hope to continue. But even besides that, I'm a business owner. My business is marketing, and I solve problems for companies. And that's been one of my strengths for all the years that I have served the community. When I left the council, I continued to serve for this community, and I'm currently serving as the chair of our Transportation Mobility Advisory Committee, and I'm also went to UTA to represent Provo's interests at UTA and to make sure that they had fulfilled their promises, that they were doing the things that they needed to do to take care of the projects that they're working on. I care about Provo, and I think those additional opportunities will bring another twist to what we need in the mayor's office.
Real quick, Howard Stone has just come. Let's go ahead and finish our round of question, and then Howard will give you a few minutes to introduce yourself and answer this question as well.
Hi. There are quite a few things I would change from the way Mayor Curtis has handled things here. I have to admit that he has done a lot of things that are good, though, in a way. There is the appearance of prosperity here, but I don't believe it's backed up by anything at this point. There are a lot of problems behind it. There are people struggling. There are empty pieces of property everywhere with no retail in them, empty storefronts, empty places for development that should have things in them, stores. I think development needs to happen, but I think that the mayor and the city council have been too restrictive. The zoning ordinances that have prevented development from happening in a lot of different places in a lot of different ways. I think that artificial constraint on where businesses should be, what types of businesses should be where, that type of micromanagement, I don't believe is appropriate. I believe in the free market. I believe that if somebody wants to start a business and put their hard-earned money into a business in a particular location, that we shouldn't be standing in their way. It's hard enough to succeed anyway without dealing with all the red tape that a city could throw up in front of somebody. So I'd like to see opportunities for everybody. When a developer comes in and they have enough money to do their project, like the mix, they come in with the deep pockets, and they don't have to change what they're doing. They get the city to change what it's asking. That's wrong.
Again, I'm Michelle Kafusi, and I just want to start off by saying I'm in my 7th year on the school board, my 2nd term. The reason I bring that up is because on the school board, I'm known for being, do I dare touch it? Okay. I'm known for being the one that looks for the good, looks for the positive. So I'm going to start with the good thing that John did that I want to keep going. And the positive thing that he did was he was a great champion for the city of Provo. And that is what I will be. I will champion this city, and I will be the face of the city, and I will take that momentum that we all can feel it and build on it. I won't keep it going, but I will build on the momentum. When I think of maybe the one thing I could change, it would probably be to keep businesses here. We have been known as being the incubator, and that's so great. We've started a lot of businesses in Provo, Ancestry.com and Vivint, and all those have started. They were our babies, but they get bigger and then they leave us. So I think one of my goals would be to keep businesses here in Provo. Let's maintain those businesses besides attracting other businesses. Thank you.
What the record will show, if you just get back into the annals of the city, is that you are looking at one of the key persons who started the neighborhood program in Provo some years ago as a city commissioner. I feel very strongly about this because the greatest asset in this community, bar none, is the human capital, the human expertise, the human education, and the willingness to be involved the way you folks are here tonight. So my administration will give you voice in all of that, and the fundamental change that I would make to describe to you in this 2-minute excerpt right here is we will not just make the neighborhood chair people messengers to the city hall. We will give you clarity. We will give you statutory definition. We will describe your roles, and we will put before you people like, and this is not meant to be pandering, but Beth Allgood is one of the superstars in the neighborhood program of Provo. There are other superstars, and let me just illustrate by this. Many of us are going to the new MTC Center, the new MTC buildings and visiting those buildings where they're located. Those buildings, the new MTC, those buildings are where they are because of this Pleasant View neighborhood. What does that mean, 30 seconds? Because of the neighborhood called Pleasant View that's right adjacent to it. Originally, the church planned to build high-rises at the current MTC site and go up and block the sun from some of that neighborhood. Because of leadership and because of unity in that neighborhood, which can exist here also, the MTC was located where it is on major thoroughfares, and it's a gorgeous new facility. That's the principle that I would change from Mayor Curtis to Mayor Minor.
Thank you. Howard Stone, will you come and tell us your name, why you ran for office, and what you would continue or change from your predecessor in that office? Since this is a combination of two questions, we'll give you 2 minutes to answer that. Sorry, 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. As you know, my name's Howard Stone. Lived in Provo for over 30 years. Served in the Air Force, got a master's degree in public administration from BYU, have been a neighborhood chair, worked with the neighborhood program, the city council, the county commission. I know the governor personally. Frankly, the mud hole around which a lot of these gadflies swarm is very shallow. We see a lot of the same people running the whole state, the whole county, the whole city. You know, the neighborhood program is a great thing. There's 34 wonderful neighborhoods in Provo. You know, we've heard some great examples of chairs, the Pleasant View at the MTC, and what Beth is doing here tonight. A lot of activity here on the west side. But 15 years ago here on the west side, a couple of neighborhood chairs got together and sued the city about Smith's going in over here on this lot. Because of that lawsuit, which tied things up for a couple of years, we got a Walmart to the north, and other entities come in and scared Smith off. Smith at that time figured it wasn't in their best interest to come to Provo at that time. Now we're surrounded by Walmarts. We got a Smith's marketplace down south, and you know, the sad thing is the city overstepped itself and came in and shut down a wonderful mom and pop grocery store operation over here and a few other businesses that were associated with it. I'm running for mayor because there is no transparency in the city. Most of the business of the day is conducted behind closed doors. By the time we show up to the meeting, the decision's already been made. I am running against John Curtis and his disciples that love what he has done. We have been run by a Democrat for nearly 10 years, and the previous mayor was very soft-spoken on BRT. He's come out lately with some members of the council, and they've talked out against it, but where were they 10, 12, 15 years ago when this stuff was incubating on their watch? I was already speaking up on that matter at that time. And while the mayor has ramrodded BRT down our throat, businesses have been vacating the city. The homeless problem's increasing. We're in danger of becoming the West Valley of Utah County. It's my intent to stop the raising of taxes, and we should not elect John Curtis to Congress. We should elect Chris Herod. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump right into the issues. A major concern of residents in the southwest area is that it seems like this area is looked at as the last open land for raw development. What is your vision of how this area should develop?
I think it's my turn to go first. Again, I'm Larry Walters, and I think this is a really good question about the west side. And first of all, let me say that I think that the planning principles that have been articulated for the west side is a great document. But that's only part of the story. The other part of the story is the city's role in making sure that you have adequate services, adequate infrastructure, to partner with those principles to make sure that the development that happens really meets the needs now and going forward. The third partner in all of that, though, has to be the landowners. And I think one of the mistakes that we often make is thinking about planning and development on a parcel-by-parcel basis. And you have some areas over here that really merit a broader view, a more integrated view. And there are tools that exist that are used elsewhere in the world that we could use here, that bring landowners together in partnership with the community and the neighborhood to say, okay, what is it that we want? Where is the infrastructure going to go? What kind of development is going to be placed where? And the result of that is that everybody wins. I'm against the use of eminent domain. I don't think we need to do that. I think there are ways that we can bring people together to cooperate and find a win-win solution on this development. So my vision for developing on the west side is to foster that kind of cooperation, that kind of joint vision between the neighborhood, the landowners, prospective developers, and the city in terms of meeting the goals that you've articulated in that document, but also meeting the infrastructure needs and the development growth. Thank you.
I've been pretty busy. Like I said, my name's Kevin Wing. I've talked to Smith's grocery store. Okay? They're a little frantic about coming in. They want us to show that we're ready. So I've talked to a couple people from the west side about putting a petition together, and I'll hand deliver it to their office in Salt Lake City to show that we're ready for it. Because what they don't understand is that it's not just going to service this area, but people all along Geneva Road will come down this way, even into Orem. Not a lot of people like to go to Walmart. It's too crowded with all those college kids from UVU. We're giving people an option. So I've been working on that, and I've been working with them pretty closely. Also, right now, I like to call the west side our little baby. It is something that has to be carefully planned out and methodically. Even our city planners have agreed with me. Our water guys, our engineers, have agreed that we have to be very carefully on how we plan this. Because if we plan it too fast, it's going to mess up. It's kind of like a baby horse. You can break it and break it all you want, but you make that one mistake and you'll break its leg. You got to take care of it. You have to be tender with it. And that's what has to happen. We have to do slow and steady growth on this west side. Because if we don't, we're going to bite it in the end.
Two minutes.
There's definitely a lot of opportunity here on the west side. It's the last open space that Provo has. We're putting high-rises everywhere else in the city. That's about all we can do. That's why we're in danger of becoming another big city with lots of big city problems. We are already the entitlement capital of Utah County because we're the county seat and we have all the associated things that go with it. The jewel of Provo is here on the west side. It's our airport. But again, the way the city has gone about acquiring some of the land for the airport, expansion and so forth through eminent domain and not paying fair market value for some of the property has been a very poor practice again on the city. The expansion of bringing the road from I-15 around from the south, the eminent domain that was used, the acquisition of property, again, the city did not pay fair market value. We have an opportunity, a chance here. We have the lake, and the lake has some issues with the June sucker and so forth, but we have the opportunity to develop the lake and turn it into a wonderful jewel, something like the Riverwalk in San Antonio or things of that nature around the country. We could make a wonderful boat harbor there. I think, though, that we should not see more high-density housing in Provo coming over here on the west side. It should remain residential. Good planning should go into effect that we get the right roads in the right place. Outside of the controversy we had a few years ago at the Bridge to Nowhere, We need to bring more people together, pay fair market value, and work together.
Property rights are important to all of us. They're one of our founding rights that we've been given. And as we grow, there's a struggle because we want to protect what we moved out here to live in. I live on a farm that the Races and the Goldings sold. I'm one of the residents that was their retirement. When we worked on the Broadview Shores area, it was difficult. The Bunnells did not want to sell. They did not want to sell their property, and it took a while to help them understand that no one was asking them to sell. But we were master planning for the future. Last year, Mr. Bunnell had an accident, and he now needed the income off of that land. And because there's a master plan in place, they are well taken care of. Our farmers have that right. They have worked that land their whole lives, and they need to have the opportunity to be able to have that land bring the best and highest price to them when they get ready to sell. There's no pressure to sell. They should be able to continue on in that use as long as they want. And if they have future generations, they should be able to continue on in that use. But as a community, we can work to master plan so that we know how we're going to put the road infrastructure in and how we're going to connect power and sewer and all of the other things. That's part of the city's role. Now, how do we incorporate open space into this plan? There has to be some compromise in order to preserve some open space. And we are going to need to have that discussion. We've been able to work it out in Broadview Shores. We should be able to work it out south of Center as well.
I really like this part of town. I don't live here, but I like it. I don't think it's the last area here left to develop. If we didn't have the zoning ordinances that we have now, if we were able to disincorporate the city, get rid of those ordinances, we would be able to build in town, in new places. Some of the neighborhoods there, they are pretty run down. Some of the people that own that land, I own some land that I would love to be able to redevelop, but I can't because of the zone that it's in. I think that would ease some of the pressure that is happening here. If property owners are able to keep their land and do what they want with it, that would be better for everybody. I disagree with the eminent domain that was used down by the airport. I was there at the council meeting January 3rd when they voted to use eminent domain to take that land. And I got to tell you, I started doing some research on eminent domain. And on January 4th, I initiated the eminent domain process against the city. I run a nonprofit, and we had been trying to buy a building from the city for a couple of years at that point, and they wouldn't sell it to us. And I found that I was actually able to use eminent domain against the city. And I would not have gotten that idea if they hadn't used it against the people down by the lake. So I hope that puts them in your shoes a little bit. And in my research, I did find that, at least for roads, my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but I found that I don't believe they're able to use eminent domain. They're not supposed to use eminent domain in anticipation of additional traffic. They're only supposed to use it if the traffic is there already and they need to build the road bigger.
So by show of hands, is anyone here attending tonight that sat on the West Side Planning Committee? Okay. Hi, Dave, Beth. Anyone else? Great. Thank you for sitting on that committee. They have put together a policy that I have studied backwards, forwards, and upsides down. I know this policy. And one of the comments on the policy that was added just basically said it so eloquently, I thought I would just read it. It says, "My purpose would be to guide development in West Provo as it occurs in order to promote a smart, sustainable, vibrant community that offers a high quality of life for current and future residents. Isn't that our vision? Our vision is for now and for the future. I just love that. So, as I looked at that, the last thing I thought we would ever want to do is make a mistake and develop something out here fast and furious, and then 10 years later look back and say, wow, what a mess. I wish we hadn't done that. I will not let that happen. We are not going to do that. We have a wonderful agricultural commission that we've put together for the city of Provo. Does anyone here sit on that? It's a great committee as well. Oh, Dave, yay. So just so you know, Dave Connect's busy. They look at the agricultural and look at ways to preserve, and they know the farmers by name, and they spend hours talking to them and including them in the conversation, which is what I appreciate. Just before I sit down, I just want to say my whole goal would be smart development. This is a jewel out here. How lucky are we to have the mountains to the east and the lake to the west and beautiful lands in between? And I plan to keep it that way. Thank you.
Do closing statements.
Let me make 2 or 3 points with you. You're looking at the only candidate for mayor who was born in agriculture, who was raised in agriculture, who lives in agriculture currently on 1.5 acres in northeast Provo, and who has animals. So when you elect me to the office, you'll be electing someone that you can identify with here in the West Side. We have here the classic urban agricultural interface challenge. And a lot of options exist to develop the land in West Provo. A complexity is the airport and making sure that we capitalize on that great resource. Who should make those decisions? Those of you who are stakeholders and private property owners here in the West should make those decisions. They shouldn't be made by the planning staff at Provo City. They shouldn't be made by this mayor or any other mayor. They should be made in concert with the city council, whom you have elected to represent you, and with whom you will work in formulating the policies that will develop the West Side. The former speaker here just left off one very important phrase in reading to you the purpose of the West Side development policies. What was left off was she stopped with the word residents, and it should have added, while respecting Provo's agricultural heritage. We have that great heritage in Provo. And with Mayor Miner in the office, we will preserve that agricultural heritage.
One of the main reasons for getting involved for me, I'm Eric Speckhard, was I talked with Leon and Bonnie Stubbs, and I've known the family for 30 years, and Leon let this city boy from Houston get on one of his big tractors. He told me I had to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning so I could watch the sun come up. I asked Leon if he had any money in the stock market, and he laughed. He said, Eric, God only made so much land, and I'm going to own as much as I can. He has done very well for his children. And as he got ill and would be in his bed, I'd come over and lay on the bed with him and talk to him. And he asked if he had done enough for his family. The property's been in the family for years and years and years. And he wanted to make sure that he took care of his family. I agreed that those farmers have gotten up and worked it for 10, 20, 30, 100 years. They deserve to sell the property when they want. I personally watched the Stubbs get eminent domain, and the initial price for their property, it was 13 acres that the city took, and what I was told was the starting point was around 20,000, 18 to 20,000 an acre. It's amazing that when you're buying a quarter-acre lot to put a house on it, that quarter-acre lots go for 75 grand, and yet the city offered them 18. Luckily, the Stubbs had enough money to get a lawyer to fight it. It was still, they lost it, but they ended up getting a little more. That is absolutely ridiculous. And we need to do something as citizens to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'd like to move on to our environmental stewardship. We have a lot of great natural resources here in Provo, including the lake, other water resources, and also Provo Power, which intersects with environmental issues all the time. I'd like to kind of combine these questions. What would you do to preserve water in our area and our water resources, as well as direct Provo Power to use renewables, if any, in their future power generation? Mr. Wing?
All right. Well, let's go with Provo Power. Let's look at reusable energy. I don't know about any of you that know about Spanish Fork windmills and what they are, but only one of those windmills goes to Utah County. The rest are shipped on a power grid back to California. Why someone did that, I have no idea. But that was an opportunity for us here in Utah County to suck a lot more power, off the wind power of those windmills. We didn't have a very good deal. I believe that that we could probably do power plants that are natural gas fed to help with energy. It is a clean energy, it clean burns, and it will help the community. It'll make power cheaper instead of always depending on our IPP power clear out there in the middle of nowhere. But also that we compete against them. They sell most of their power to California. California has the most money. They set out the most bids. They get out the most power. We have to rethink that. We have the opportunity to be environmental friendly when it comes to energy. And I believe it's in Japan, they use in the water. They have little fans under the water that go off of waves and cause energy to come into the reactors. That's clean energy. It's done by natural resources. That's what I would look for in doing reusable energy, is use what we have. And that's what I would do.
Provo City Power, we had a meeting 7 years ago, City Council chambers, when Mayor Curtis first came in, discussing water rates, power rates, and so forth. The director of power, Kevin Garlick at that time, who's now the director of UMPA, which is a consortium of cities from which Provo buys its power together in a group from, couldn't answer a straight question to save his life in that meeting. The then sitting city council, and I believe there was at least one member up here behind me that was on that council, voted to raise your power rates, which go up automatically every July. Your water and your power go up, tax and spend. Mayor Curtis also added to the power bill a fee for road maintenance. He also added a fee for iProvo, the $40 million bond under Lewis Billings, for which they didn't give us an opportunity to vote on like they did the rec center. I guess the majority voted and got that. But if we had all gotten a chance for iProvo back in 2001, I don't know how the vote would have went, but I don't think we would have voted to indebt ourselves $40 million. And then under Mayor Curtis agreed to pay an additional fee for an oversight on operational expenses of the vendor they picked to run it. We have precious resources over here, but the administration we've had in office and the elected officials have supported a tax and spend platform. And they use the power bill as a catch-all for any property tax they can't raise, they put it in there so they can pull it in the general fund and use it however they want. Beware of who you elect for your mayor.
To conserve water for our community, Provo has now gone to starting to install metering that will allow us to charge rates that will be different in peak times during the day. So we'll now incentivize our residents to use water to do laundry and things like that during the off-peak hours. Right now we're focused on some infrastructure problems, but that system is about 30% in and will be completed over the next 2 years. And that will allow you to know that, hey, I'm going to do my laundry in the dishwasher before 10 a.m. in the morning, and I'm going to make sure I water my lawn at certain hours. That will help promote us to be more conservative with our water use when it costs less to operate. The other thing that we can do as well in our solar and in our city's power structure, as part of UMPA, we have to provide enough power to power our city. But every morning, somebody gets up about 6 a.m. and shops the power grid across the entire United States and buys power for the cheapest available price. So in the spring, when the Columbia River's going, we buy it off Columbia River. But we are now working on solar farms. The Power Board on Monday approved a 25 megawatt solar farm down in central Utah to be able to help our commercial people that are higher users to be able to use that power from there. They're also putting a solar farm in Spanish Fork, which will allow us as residents to be able to purchase into solar power and receive some of the benefits without necessarily having to put the installation in our homes. And so I think that's some great incentives and some great opportunities as well.
So I'm going to come at answering this question from a little bit of a roundabout way, but bear with me. So I've been pushing a little bit for disincorporation of the city. What that means is if enough signatures are gathered, a vote is held. If the vote passes by a 50% majority, the city has to wind down its affairs. The 1,500 pages of Provo City ordinances that limit what we can do here will go away, and the city sells all of its assets to pay all of its debts, and then anything left over goes to the school district. What that would mean for the power company is it would go on the market, basically. It would go to a bidder, probably Rocky Mountain Power. Who knows who would bid on that? I know Elon Musk is very interested in municipal scale power generation and grids. Maybe he would buy it. I don't know. That's a possibility. I don't know. The water company would also go to either a private party that would supply water, or maybe the county would take it over. That's the process in state code, just selling the assets. But if a mayor goes in and helps that transition happen, it could probably go a lot smoother. Now, one of the reasons why all that stuff is important is private companies have abilities that cities don't have. There are laws about where we can get our water and how we get it, and private companies are more free to make deals, and they're liable. We can't sue the city if they fail to perform. We can sue a private company if they fail to supply things correctly.
So since this was a 2-point question, bring the microphone up. You are really good. Since this question was a 2-point question, the first part being about water, the second about power, I'm going to talk about water first. First of all, no one's mentioned that we live in a desert. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that we still live in a desert, that we have to be careful with our water. Many times, I remember the floods, I remember the droughts. It's kind of a roller coaster ride here, so we have to be careful. some things we could look into is zero landscaping. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It used to be a type of landscaping that everyone thought was just ugly and not beautiful to look at. It has come a long ways. I encourage you to look at zero landscaping. What it implements is native plants that take less water to survive. And it's a great idea, and they're beautiful. I'm a huge proponent for that. And probably the thing I'm most passionate about with water is our water rights. I've talked to many people who have told me their biggest fear is that they're going to get their water rights taken away. That is not right. There is no way we should allow neighboring cities or the legislature to come down to Provo and mandate and say, we're taking your water rights away. I will fight that till the bitter end. Okay, let me get to energy really quick. Couple things about energy. I'm a big proponent for solar and other renewable energy sources. Power is measured in kilowatts per hour, and everyone on their power bill, the first 500 is free, or not free, but cheap, and then once you hit 1,000, it gets really expensive. Solar energy does great things. Solar panels, they collect energy all day long. Oh, I'm running out of time, darn it. Anyways, they put it back onto the grid. The city pays them for a portion of that. It's expensive to run the grid, so we just need to keep our eyes open and looking for fresh and upcoming ideas. Thank you.
I invite all of you to pick up this flyer and turn to the back. This is our flyer. When I was city commissioner, Central Utah Project came in to Utah Valley with a gusto. They came down Provo Canyon basically and said, we will claim all the water in Provo Canyon and we will put it with the Deer Creek water and we will treat it, and a good portion of that goes into Salt Lake Valley. As a city commissioner, I voted to authorize and participated in securing Provo's water rights in Provo Canyon and South Fork. Because of these actions, Provo City has adequate water and will have into the foreseeable future. The other thing that really is important in terms of this west side development is there are incredible irrigation rights which we protected in Provo Canyon, and no one's going to come in here and take those away from us, by the way, because they are proven and they are filed, and we are making beneficial use, what's called beneficial use of those water rights. I'll be happy to visit with any of you that are in agriculture after and talk with you more about this. But specifically, here's the point for West Side development. Water and water development should be an a priori. One of the first things that goes into a good general plan here or a West Side development plan will be for us to identify the groundwaters and to isolate those, 30 seconds, to isolate those groundwaters so that any development that occurs, especially with wastewater outfall and other things from Provo High School, some of this has been done, but more needs to be done. We need to identify what those pollution sources may be and make sure that they do not pollute any of the existing natural water, groundwater rights that are here in the west side. Didn't get a chance to talk to you about solar energy. One word, incentivize energy, so we as homeowners benefit.
Water's important. I tell my teenagers all the time, this is not your own 30-minute shower. And I bang on the door. It sounds silly, but how many of us try to do the small things and say, you need to take a 3 to 5 minute shower? There's billions of people that don't get any shower. And yet, you know, we don't do that. We sit there and water our lawns at the wrong time. I love a yard. I love my green grass. It's not that big. I'm not a farmer. I do want to tell Odell that he's got animals. My son left on a mission last week, and I'm in charge of his 2 turtles. So those are the only animals I'm in charge of, is 2 turtles. I think I'm doing okay so far. They'll probably be gone before he comes home. Thank goodness for KSL. So we just need to be reasonable. We need to talk. We need to have open discussions. Hey, what are you doing? What do you want to do with your water supply? No one talks about it until it's a problem. As far as energy, one of the best things I've heard is we live in a desert. There's sun all the time. Everyone goes and gets sunburn at football games or skiing. I'm thrilled to have an opportunity not to put a solar panel on my house. It's expensive, and there's tax rebates, but there's also, you limit the number of people that can do that when you're trying to put it on their homes. I'm all about a solar farm where anyone can participate and have their little portion, and they can rotate those. If it's on your house, you can't rotate it. If it's on a solar farm, you can. You can rotate it all day long and get maximum output, maximum incentives. Thank you for being here tonight.
Again, my name is Larry Walters, and I'm running for mayor. On water conservation, which I think was the question, it seems to me that there are two elements of it. First of all, we have to take care of the resource that we have. I've been on the city's budget committee now for 4 years. One of the things that the budget committee asked the Public Works Department was, do we have adequate water rights for Provo now and into the future? We never got a straight answer to that question. They didn't know for sure. We asked the question, what's the difference between the amount of water we put into the system and the amount running through the meters? They hemmed and they hawed. They couldn't answer that question. Part of the reason is that our storage is set up in such a way that when our springs produce more water than the city actually use, we actually put it into the river. This wonderful water just goes right into the river. So one of the things we need to do as a city is look at our storage, look at our leakage in the system. As a city, we need to get our house in order. Then we need to incentivize appropriate use on the part of the citizens and the businesses. This is going to happen as we move to a tiered rate structure. We just need to make sure that we get the right tiers and the right rate structure. On the energy side, I'm proud to be able to say I have been an advocate of solar power for over a decade. I was one of the first people to install solar panels on my roof when Provo started to allow net metering in 2007. Okay. We are still one of the homes in the city that routinely generates more power than we use over the course of the year. I'm committed to alternative energy sources. I understand it. I've lived with it. I've advised Travis Ball and the Energy Department on how to tweak their system so that it's more beneficial for solar users. That conversation is a long way from being done. There's a lot more to talk about, and I'll look forward to leading those discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for your answers. We do want to give you 30 seconds to give your last little sales pitch to the people of West Side, and then we'll give you a chance to mix and mingle. Howard Stone, you can go first.
The system referred to earlier about monitoring your electrical use is called smart meters. It's an Agenda 21 item. I would advise you all to go Google Agenda 21 and find out what that's all about. But it's Big Brother eavesdropping on your use in your house, on all your appliances, your water use. 10 years ago, when everyone was asleep, I was down there talking against it in the county meeting. You know, we got to get away from the kind of Democrat control we've had here in the city. Really, this isn't a popularity contest. It's not about signs and postcards.
Howard, thank you.
And vote for Chris Herod for Congress.
I live in West Provo, and I'm not going anywhere. I love this part. I love that we're not all filled out yet, but we have to be careful about the future. And I think one of the things I offer is a homegrown, here on the West Side, committed effort to be able to help work through some of these difficult issues. My name is Sherry Hall Everett. I hope that you'll come up afterwards and ask me your specific questions. And I ask for your vote as the first West Side mayor ever.
I think a lot of the problems that we think are super important right now are not going to be big issues in the future. I'm a great believer in technology. I think technology is going to solve a lot of the problems. Parking isn't going to be an issue when we've got self-driving cars. Power's not going to be an issue if I can get my fusion reactor running. But in all seriousness, I think technology is going to change things. We should be ready for that, and we need to expand our view beyond Provo City's borders.
I'm going to move it up even before he has to tell me. I finally learned. I'm Michelle Kafusi, and I'm running for Provo Mayor, and I'm running for the mayor of the entire city. I don't claim I'm from the west side or the east side because I don't look at it like that. I look at it as a city. I love this city. I'm the only one up here that's currently holding a city office. I'm a bridge builder. I can work with the city council, and I'm happy to be here representing Provo City. Please vote for me, Michelle Kafusi.
As your mayor, I will bring to you the office of the chief executive in Provo a commitment to work closely with you. I will bring all my education, all my experience prior in the city. I will bring my full commitment and my proven principled leadership in solving the problems with you, working with you, listening to you, leading you, and responding to you. Thank you so much for your vote.
I'm Eric Speckhard, Eric for Provo. I appreciate you being here tonight. You could be somewhere else. What I bring is hopefully some enthusiasm for people to get together, talk about problems, come up with solutions. It is vital that we get our neighbors involved. Vital. Stay after, talk with me. Thanks for being here.
I'm Larry Walters. I'm running for mayor. I appreciate you being here. And I would, what I can offer as mayor is, first of all, I'm not a politician. This is not something that I aspire to do. I have no aspirations for other office. This is not a stepping stone. I'm a public servant. That's what I've done my entire career. I bring international experience, international insights, and experience that will benefit Provo as it faces the challenges in the next 4 years.
Well, it's a problem. This chair sits in the mayor's office. This is your chair. I want to sit in it for you. I want to hold it for you and protect it and stand up for your rights. That's what this chair represents. I want you to vote me as your mayor so I can fight for you and fight for what you have and what you have in the future.
Thank you to all of our candidates. Let's give them a round of applause. And yeah, we invite you to stick around for a few minutes and be able to talk to each of them individually.